Hi, my name is Karen Overton, the Quilt Rambler, and I would like to invite you to join me on a tutorial quilt along making this beautiful quilt called Hidden Stars. I use Deb Tucker's Rapid Fire Hunter Star Petite Ruler as well as her collection of fabrics Exuberance from Island Boutique. I hope you will join me and take time to watch this tutorial. We'll be quilting along. I will show you how to cut your fabric, how to piece the units, how to trim the units, and how to put it together to make this beautiful quilt. Fun thing about this is it's totally free. I even have a PDF download with all the information for your yardage and your cutting instructions. So let's get started and let me show you how we're going to prepare our fabric and cut it using the Rapid Fire Hunter Star tool. Now that we've pressed all of our beautiful fabric, let's take it over to the cutting station and I'll show you how to turn these 10-inch squares into units that we need to sew together to make our Hunter Star. First of all, you're going to line up your 10-inch square on your cutting mat. You're going to verify that you have a straight edge because sometimes, depending on your 10-inch squares, they may have the little zigzag across. I'm going to use a regular tool, line this up at 1 3/4, okay, and make my first cut. I'm going to set this aside because in a few minutes I'm going to cut a trapezoid out of that. Now I'm going to rotate this towards me so that the cut that I just made is on the bottom so I know it's a true cut. And I'm again going to line up and cut 1 3/4. It's very important that this is a good cut because this is a precision cut later. Okay? Then I'm going to get my square up ruler and I'm going to line up those two cut edges and I will cut a 7-inch square. Okay? So we're going to cut, this is waist, we'll cut across here, and this is waist, very little waist. Next, I will be taking my same tool, and if you have one that has a 45-degree mark on here, that's perfect. You can line it on the bottom. If you don't, you're basically cutting this square on the diagonal to make two half square triangles. Set these aside. Then we're going to come back with our trapezoid fabric. I like to lay the shorter one on top, right sides up on both of them. Okay. And then I'm going to use my Hunter Star and we're making a 7-inch block, so I'm going to find the line that says 7-inch trapezoid right across here. Okay. And then I'm going to line it up on the bottom here, and then on the top is going to have my dotted lines at the top of my strip. This is waist. This is waist. And now out of my 10-inch square, I have 2 precision cut trapezoids and 2 half square triangles. Next, we'll sew these together to form a star strip. So after you've cut all of your 10-inch squares into half square triangles, put them together with all your fabric that match together, and then you're going to have all of your trimmed trapezoids also together so that you can match the fabrics as you go. The next thing we're going to be doing is using our star strips, and the PDF will tell you how many to cut. You're going to cut these at 2 1/4. Once you've cut them, you're simply going to cut on the fold, the natural fold of the fabric. Scissor cut is fine. Okay, and because my wrong sides are together, I want to flip it over so that my right sides are both facing up. I'm going to use 1 strip. We're going to fold down the edge to give us an offset, just the width of our strip. I've already lined up the trapezoids where they are wrong sides up and the strip fabric is right side up. I'm going to line my trapezoid along that edge. And I'm going to make sure that the long side of my trapezoid is away from me and the short side is towards me. Okay. Because I'm doing some precision sewing here, I want to make sure that my trapezoid is on top of my star strip. Again, right sides together. We're going to chain piece, and I'm going to actually leave about 1/4 of an inch between them, line them up that way so I can cut them apart later. Okay. And depending on the width of my fabric, how many of these I can get on a strip. You should be able to get at least 5. If your fabric is wider, you can get 6. And you'll take that into consideration based on how many strips you may need to cut. So again, I'm sewing, just chain piecing, lining them up. I use my stiletto to push that underneath, and that gives me a good start. And looks like I may get 6 out of this one, because on side 1, star side 1, I can get, I can go all the way down to the bottom. Okay. Yeah, there we go. And like I said, we want that to be a good 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, we've got that sewn. So now let's walk over to the pressing station. I think I need to press this first before I try to cut it. So let's go do that. First thing I'm going to want to do is to set my seams. Okay. Then I'm going to use my pressing stick, and I will open this up very gently. Don't want to stretch anything. My stick's not quite long enough to get all of them, but I'm going to finger press these open. Okay. And then I will come back and hit it with my iron. Finger pressing helps me not to distort the seam, as well as not burn my fingers when I hit it with the iron. So let's open this up. I find that pressing my seams open makes my block and my units lay flatter. Okay. I also don't end up with a little bit of a pleat, because if you don't press this well and you have a pleat, it's going to affect the way you trim later, which will also affect your entire block. So the things that matter the most when you are sewing is how you cut, how you sew, and how you press. So gently, I'm going to flip this over. Okay. And I'm going to realign it. Okay. Because that one had a little bit of a wrinkle in it. Realign these and press again from this side. Okay. If you're a starcher, you may want to do a little starch right here. All right, that's our first star strip with our trapezoids. Now we're going to go to the cutting station. I'm going to show you how to cut these apart in preparation for star strip 2. To lay my strip with the trapezoids away from me, okay, then using my tool, I'm going to look for the side that has the diamonds on it. This line right here is going to be used to line up against my star strip so that I can make a good clean cut on my strips. Let's see. Scoot him down a little bit. We'll cut this direction first. Okay. So at the bottom of my tool is the straight line. Okay. And then I need to line up this line with my trapezoid. I do not want to trim anything off of the trapezoid, but I want to make sure that he is cut straight so that I can get a good cut. I'm only going to be cutting on the long side, okay? Move my tool down, realign the tool where my line is across the bottom of my strips. Hard to see with a black line and black fabric, but trust me. So there is one trapezoid now trimmed. A few dog ears there, we're not going to worry about that. Scoot him down a little bit. Make sure everything is still settled. Line up the line. Make sure my trapezoid is straight. If I need to readjust him a little bit, I can do that just to make sure that everything is straight before I cut that 45° on that diamond. There we go. And you'll continue doing this for the entire strip. And again, you may have 5 or you may have 6, dependent on the width of fabric of your star strip. But regardless, you want to be able to keep everything straight. See how that's not straight with my trapezoid, so I need to adjust. There we go. And one more. Gets rid of that little dog ear there. I'm not concerned about this one here, but if it kind of bothers you, just go ahead and cut that off and you won't have so much overhang. Okay. Now we're going to take these back to the sewing machine and we're going to sew the second star strip on. Now we're ready to sew the second star strip onto our trapezoids. This time we're going to also do right sides together with the large side facing us, and we're going to line it up at the top. No fold down on this one. Okay, again, right sides together, and we do need to have a good 1/4 inch seam. Let's get our strip started. Okay, and you should be able to get again that 4 or that 5 depending on the width of your fabric. The only difference, of course, is if you're only getting 5 on there, you're going to need an extra strip. So just be mindful of that. Again, I'm leaving a 1/4 inch between the strips, or the trapezoids rather. And going to get them all on here. Line them up. I like to use the stiletto because it does make it easier for me to push the fabric under and not worry about pins. Looks like we have 2 more to go. There we go. And a good 1/4 inch seam is very important on this because this part of the trapezoid is a precision sewing. And it looks like I left one over on the cutting table because I was ending up with too much fabric at the end. So it's always good to kind of double check your work and make sure you haven't dropped a unit on the floor, or the cat walked off with it, or the toddler, or whoever happens to be in your sewing center. So let's see if we got them all. I think we do. One, two, three, four, 5, 6. I have all of them. Now we're going to go press these again, and I'll show you how to do that final trim. All right, I have my second star strip pressed. I want to line my trapezoids up on my cutting station. Make them lay as flat as possible. I am again going to be trimming with the tucker tool, and this time I've turned it this direction to line up with that line and to make my 45-degree angle cut. because I'm once again cutting on the long side of my trapezoid. I want to line it up at the bottom of the strip, make sure it goes straight along my trapezoid. If I need to resettle my trapezoid, I can do that. Okay, then we're going to make that first cut. Okay. And move him out of the way. Okay. Let's scoot this down a little bit. See if we can get the rest of them. This is one of those things that you need to take your time on because you do want to have a good straight cut. You need to have that 45-degree angle that matches the 45-degree angle of the trapezoid. Okay. Resettle him, line him back up. Okay. There we go. Just double check, take your time. And as my dad would say, hold your mouth just right. But you want to make sure everything is a good, clean cut. Let's resettle these where we can get them back on the board. Okay. Lining up once again with the line on the tool, making sure the trapezoid lays flat and straight to get a good cut. There we go. Okay. I have them all pressed. This is a good time to use starch if you like to use starch to make sure that your unit is lying flat and that there's no bumps or ridges here at your seam line. Okay, we're going to take our tool and go back to that 1 3/4 where we originally cut our trapezoids, and we are going to trim off the excess star strips. If by chance you have a little bit of wrangly dog ears on this other side, you can trim the star only. Do not trim the trapezoid because it is a precision cut and needs to stay at that 1 3/4. This is where it kind of helps to have a mat, perhaps, that has that 45-degree angle on it. Again, we're going to line up our 1 3/4. Trim off the extra star. This one looks like he might need a little haircut on the other side. I see a dangling dog ear. So I'm going to just go ahead and take care of that here and line everything up. And there was just a smidgen of star fabric that needed to be trimmed also. Trim all of those up. And then we'll go back to the sewing station and I will show you how we put these together. Okay, now we're back at the sewing station and I have my trapezoids and I have my half square triangles and I want to do the ones that match. So let's pull out these pretty orange and blue ones first. I'm going to make sure that I have the right sides facing up. Okay, and in the case of the trapezoids, I need to turn them where the small side is facing the half square triangle, okay, because that's the way we're going to put them together. Now, obviously, I need to put right sides together, but I also need to find my center because these are going to be centered on here. They're kind of hard to match up if you didn't do that. So a little finger press here and take my star seams, put them together, make a little finger press there, open it up, and if you're more comfortable doing so, put a little clip there or a pin, whichever you prefer, and then we are actually going to sew the top right sides together. And again, we're sewing from the trapezoid on the top because the trapezoid is our precision sewing, and we want to make sure that we have a good 1/4 inch seam. Okay, this is where I like the stiletto because I can push my seam down and make sure that it's not rolling on me. The most important thing, of course, is to have a nice flat unit and to have a good 1/4 inch seam. Okay. We can speed it up a little bit there. After you've sewn that and you open it up, you can start to visualize the half 100 star block. We're going to press this open and then we'll talk about the next steps. All right, I have now finished sewing all of my half blocks together. I've spent some time laying it out on the design wall. I wanted to make sure that I had a nice, what I call hidden star, and I chose to use the lighter fabrics in my collection. I also wanted a pop of color here in the center. So take some time, lay out your blocks, your half blocks, making sure that you've got a good contrast between the ones that are touching each other, and make sure that you are going to be forming that star unit. Then when you get to that point where you think you're happy, stop and take a photograph of this with your camera, your phone, so that you can remember where you placed everything. Because the next thing we have to do is take these off, right sides together, and sew all of these blocks. So I'll meet you at the sewing station and we'll do that. Okay, I decided to just take down the outer columns and get those together, and I'm going to sew them in order down that column so that maybe I won't get them misplaced and have to refer back to that photograph. But it's just another way of doing things, so see what works for you. But I want to show you now how we do put these together. Okay, so these are the blocks that I picked up off of the design wall. And the most important thing we're going to do is match these points. Now, the blocks themselves are not going to be the exact size, because one of the things that we do with Deb Tucker tools is we oversize our units and we trim them down to the correct size. But it is most important to match those points. And as you can see right here, how I have them pressed open so that I can see exactly where they are. If you want to use a pen, that's fine, but I prefer to use my stiletto because I can use it like a pen and like a second finger. I will put the stiletto in the seam, turn this over right sides together, of course, and I'm matching that point. Okay, and then I'm sewing to that point. Okay, and then once I get there, so you can see, oops, sometimes you got to push the little guy down, but I am pulling that stiletto out right when it's at that point, so I know that it has hit my point. Then I'm going down here to the next point, doing the same thing. Okay, can you see where I'm picking it up and matching my point? And I'm holding this here just like a pen. I'm letting that be my pen, and as I get closer to the needle, I just pull that out. Okay. Now let's check this one and see how we did. You're going to want to kind of do that periodically, or at the end, double check all of them and then come back and adjust the ones that's needed. But the point is, we're trying not to lose our points. Okay, there we go. There's a really good one. So let's continue sewing along and getting all of our blocks sewn together, put them back on the wall in placement, and then I'll teach you to trim. Now that we've put together our half blocks into blocks and we've pressed them open, we're going to take them to the cutting station, and I'm going to show you how to trim them with the Rapid Fire Hunter Star tool. We're going to use our Rapid Fire Hunter Star to trim our blocks. We are making a 7-inch finish, and so this is how we would do it. We would start with this side, line it up on our block where the lines go on the trapezoid, okay? And the lines go across the star. Now I've already trimmed this side, okay? And so now we will rotate our unit. And again, we are going to line up. This time we're going to line up with the 7.5 cut size on the top and the bottom. And we're also going to line up with our star and our center going down the trapezoid. And this is going to give us a 7.5 cut, which will be the 7.5 finish that we want for our units. Okay, and so now it looks more like a hunter star. Let's do one more. Line your block up with the stars to the upper right-hand corner. Position your tool to where the main line goes right down the center of your block, and this little 90-degree angle for your star matches your sewn seams. Okay. Trim the side and trim the top. Lift the tool, rotate the unit. This time you're going to use that 7.5 cut size for the square up. You're again going to make sure that your diagonal line goes on your seam and that your reference points for your star intersect at the star here and here. Now, when you put the units together, the stars are going to match and you've got your 1/4-inch seam already figured in. So go and sew some more and trim some more, and we'll keep working on this. Now that you have all of your blocks sewn together and trimmed, lay them back on the design wall to make sure you have everything exactly where you want it. You may change your mind and decide to tweak a little bit and move a few of those around, and that's okay. Next thing you'll do, of course, is to put the quilt top together. Now, I know you know how to do this, but I'm going to give you a couple of suggestions. I like to sew in columns instead of in rows. It helps me to keep from twisting and turning my blocks, but this particular design is divisible by a 4-patch. So if you wanted to, you could actually make a 4-patch and 4-patch and 4-patch, and then put your 4 patches together, and your whole quilt is assembled like a 9-patch. However you decide to do that will be great, and I know you're going to be very, very pleased with the outcome. Don't you just love the way this has turned out? I like the fact that we've got the light hidden star here in the center, and we just worked our way out with the colors. I added a narrow border here, the same color as my stars, because this kind of gave it a place for my eyes to rest, and the stars have stopped. Then we've added the other 2 borders. I'm auditioning this color for my binding because I like for my binding to pop too. I want to thank you for joining me on this Quilt Along tutorial using Deb Tucker's Hunter Star as well as her signature collection. I hope you'll give that a try. And would you please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. It's free to subscribe to me on YouTube. It just lets you know when I'm doing other tutorials so that you can quilt along with the Quilt Rambler. So thanks again for joining me. See you next time.